And one of the things we always love to do, especially as we have experts from different asset classes, which is this is a little bit different than what we do for rental properties in Jacksonville, is I would love to kind of end the show kind of speak in the same language. And so what we've identified is 6 investing criteria that most investors want. When you go into an investment, this is kind of what you want. And I would love to get your insight on kind of how this stacks up. We go on a 1 to 5 scale. So 5 would be most advantageous, would be the best. 1 would be kind of the worst, right? And I'll ask you about these criteria, okay? So first we've got cash flow. Next, we've got volatility. Next, we've got upside. Next, we've got liquidity. Then we've got entry point. And then we've got effort overall. All right. So I know I haven't really prepped you for any of this. So thanks for not being scared and running through this with me. Let's go.
We're talking very generally. I think maybe for this specific exercise, we'll focus in on Belize and maybe just Ambergris Key a little bit more.
All right. So 1 to 5 scale, right? Let's talk about cash flow, right? So where I'm kind of thinking about this, most investments out there do not produce positive cash flow. And if we even think about investing in real estate, it's this new phenomenon that people are like, oh, I got to have positive cash flow. It wasn't always that way, and people invested very successfully for decades and decades. So the fact of having positive cash flow is a real plus. I would put, JWB earns, call it $100 a month in cash flow. And as far as the percentages that you were sharing out there before, I think you mentioned kind of like 3 to 5% for your long term. And that I would assume that's cash on cash return, right? And so 7 to 9% for vacation rentals, JWB, if you're just looking at cash on cash return, you're going to be kind of 2%, 3%. So, for you, I'm thinking positive cash flow is huge. And even if you're getting into vacation rentals, I think you said 7 to 9% cash on cash return. Cash flow seems really strong. Am I reading that the right way?
You are. And, a lot of it also depends where you're buying. Some places have better marketing than others. And this is a conversation that I have when people are just starting to look at properties overseas, and their primary goal is an investment. They want to see money. They want to see the cash flow. So in that case, I say, go with a branded hotel. Go with a branded hotel. The advantage that they have that these other mom and pop places don't have is the fact that their job is to put heads on beds. Their only job is to provide rentals and to be putting people in the hotel rooms. And so I think that's where people will see more cash flow. I would say generally Ambergris Key is about a 3. I think that it has a lot of potential to increase because the country is still fairly young. I mean, 1971 is when they got their, 81 is when they gained their independence. 1981 is when they gained their independence. So it's still a fairly young country. And, like we were saying before, you were still learning where Belize is. And I think as more people, more mainstream travelers learn about the country, we'll start to see cash flow increase. And that's why having branded hotels like a Best Western, like a Marriott, like the other ones that are here, Wyndham, Hilton, they help the mainstream travelers learn about the country and learn about the opportunity. So I think there's still room to improve there. I also want to make a mention that, it will also depend on if you're financing or if you're paying cash, right? And if you're financing and you have an interest rate of 10, 11, 12%, then, maybe you're covering the mortgage and making a little bit of extra, or maybe you're really just covering expenses or having to put a couple dollars in. So it just really depends ultimately on those sort of factors, is who's the rental management company, again, going back to the diligence, how long have they been in business, but ultimately, what does their occupancy numbers look like?
You bring up a really good point about taking into account the financing. I guess I was kind of assuming that was taking into account the financing, but I forgot that it's 10 to 12% interest rates.
It's high. I mean, it's high. I can speak more specifically for our properties. We're able to get lower interest rates. Ours about 4.9. But generally, if you're not getting those sort of rates, you're getting this typical 10%, then it's going to be a bit of a different story. And I know we're so trained, and Keith and I talk about this all the time, is that we're so trained when we're looking at investment properties to leverage, put down as little as you can, keep moving on to the next investment, the next investment, the next investment. But sometimes in cases, it makes more sense actually to put more money down and not be financing all of it, or be financing smaller amount than you would have normally been doing previously.
Yeah. I wouldn't be so much of an advocate of the debt in a different country as I am in Jacksonville and in the States, because it's not the same, right? You don't have, cheap debt in other parts of the country. All right. So just so I'm clear on that though, so you can get positive cash flow on, let's just say, your properties in Belize, because you guys have special financing available for folks, whereas it's probably not possible for others investing in Belize if you just have normal financing. Am I understanding that right?
I would say that's a fair assumption, but of course it depends on properties and all the other in between.
Cool. All right, let's talk volatility. So, rental properties in the States, in Jacksonville have performed incredibly well all through COVID, really. I mean, we're investing in a critical need for the individual, and then the government has a huge incentive to create stimulus to make sure that people can stay in their houses. And that's one reason why, we had such high retention rates here at JWB and in this space. How is volatility in terms of cash flows for you guys, especially over the last couple of years?
So, we've seen more volatility over COVID, obviously, because we weren't getting vacationers down here. The borders were closed in multiple countries, or it was just hard to get there. So it wasn't as easy we're getting zero occupancy, right? Zero occupancy. I don't think that's a surprise though for many people who are in the vacation rental space. Where we actually saw people getting cash flow is the people who had long-term renters, right? There are people who were expats living down there and they said, we're not going back. We don't have a home in the States, or we don't have a home in our home country. So it was interesting to see, because typically, like we said, people who are on the long-term rental are making less, but this time they're actually making more than people who are in the vacation rental. But I would say it's stable. I'd say it's about a 3.5. I'd say stable is probably the best word for it at this point. And again, room to grow there because of the fact that we are getting more and more people coming down, more direct flights coming into the country. But that would be my best number for you there.
Yeah, perfect. And, it's good to know that, listen, there's that risk if the borders are shut and we go through COVID again, that, that's going to affect your vacation rentals. I mean, I think that's clear. Let's take that out of the equation. What's typical volatility like pre-COVID if you're looking in this market?
Sure. So I would say, historically, as we've looked at Central America, numbers have just continued to be going up year after year. We have more people who are traveling. Younger generation is more excited to be hopping on a plane and going somewhere. And now where we have digital nomads, we were able to work from anywhere, right? We have these increasing numbers of people who are coming down and spending time in the region because they're still able to get their job done. They don't have to wait until retirement. They don't have to wait until they have a week break from work. So we do tend to see it increasing generally per year in many of these locations. What I would recommend and what I would want people to consider too is that a little bit more specifically is these countries have high seasons and they have low seasons. So that's where you'll see more volatility versus annual volatility. High season is, and I'm going to speak for Ambergris Caye specifically, high season is middle of November through middle of May. It's when it's chilly up in the north, people are coming down, they want to spend Christmas time on the beach, or they have spring break and they're bringing their kids somewhere. So we do tend to see that's high season. Low season is the opposite, middle of October through middle of November. And so there, what I would say is September, October, part of November, maybe a little bit of August, September, October, a little bit of November, it's quiet. It's quiet here. So when you're thinking about your rental income that's going to be coming in from vacation rentals, expect to have very low numbers during those 3 months. Where you're going to see more rental income is during that high season period, peak season, that's the holidays. If you really are thinking about cash flow, please do not come and stay in your condo, your home over peak season. That's when you're making a bulk of your income. Truly, that's when you're making a bulk of your income. And I know we all want the best of both worlds. We want to have a beautiful condo on the beach. We want to be able to take our family down there over the holidays. But I can tell you, if you're really looking at this from the cash flow perspective, you want to keep that open for renters because you will get that. So I'd say that's more of where you see the volatility. But just historically, we've seen the numbers. We look at Belize Tourism Board. They are the local tourism board. They produce numbers every year. So you're able to see the number of travelers who are coming in, where they're coming in from, and then also where in the country they're going to. And Ambergris Caye continues to top the charts when it comes to most popular locations for people to visit in the country.
Gotcha. So it seems like overall volatility there is maybe more than what we would see in a long-term rental in the States. However, you can make the case that just being diversified out of the United States kind of increases or decreases your overall volatility, right? Get into a different asset class in a different country, and you're helping yourself kind of smooth out your returns in that way. Talk a little bit about upside and liquidity. All right. So it was great to hear you said, generally about 5% appreciation year over year. So that's a little bit higher than what we see in the Jacksonville market. It seems like the lack of financing though will kind of hedge that a little bit, right? If you can only put 20% down or 25% down, your upside is higher. And then I was thinking from liquidity, it was for the Belize market, I think you said, about 130 to about 200,000 to 400,000. So if you're putting 50% down, that's about 65 to maybe 200 out of pocket to be able to purchase a property. Am I in the right ballpark there?
Yep. Exactly right. Exactly
cool.
Right.
Very cool. And then let's talk about effort. So this was the question I wanted to ask earlier. The biggest thing for me, if I'm thinking about making a decision like this, is how can this be passive? How can this be effortless? And especially working with the best team out there in a different part of the a different part of the world is just super important. So how do you guys make this easy for investors? How easy can it really be? Or should people know that this is just a little bit more of an active investment?
No, people don't have to do anything. And then in fact, we tell people that not to do anything if they don't want to. If they want to send renters over, they'll get a split of the average daily rate. They'll get a little bit of extra money for being the referral agent, but otherwise they really don't have to do anything. And that was really some of the big reasons why we decided to partner with a hotel brand. With Marriott specifically, they they require us to use either Marriott or a third-party operator who takes care of everything. So, we're developing it, we're building it. We have a Marriott name on the building, but at the end of the day, it's Highgate who's there. They manage dozens of branded hotels throughout the Caribbean. They were approved by the Marriott. And so they probably don't even want you to get involved. They want owners to stay away. They want to make it as easy and streamlined as possible so that they're able to give people the Marriott experience. And it's the same with Best Western. And so I'd say from those perspectives, you really have an incredible ease of not having to do anything. For our other properties, we have some tiny homes over the water. I saw someone on here mention that their children own with us there, which is pretty neat to see. But for those homes that are over the water, that is going to be operated by ECI. We have 25 years of experience in doing this. So we have the reservation system, we have the on-site management company, and I really discourage people from trying to set up Airbnb. I know I've gotten that question quite a bit. If you're not planning to live in the country, it is very, very tricky to set up an Airbnb. And the reason that I said is, yes, you may get somebody in through the online reservation system who's staying, but then that means your guest is going to be getting into the home or trying to get into your home without you there. Also, you may have thought that you found somebody trusty who will be there to clean the house before somebody comes. And we have boat days here quite a bit on the island. And I can tell you, when there's a boat day, whoever's invited is going. So you have your housekeeper who's supposed to come and clean, but she gets invited on a free boat trip. She's going to go on that boat trip instead. And so it just gives you the peace of mind of knowing that it's taken care of and there's consistency across the board. And I think for investors, that's probably one of the most important things to know, is that your guests will have a great experience. And you don't have to do anything. You really don't have to do anything. Come down and visit every now and again, but let the rental management and the property management team take care of it for you.
Sounds fantastic to me.